Hi, my name is Julie Lurie, and I met John Roger in the master's program, Spiritual Science, and he would come in and take sharings, and the most amazing things would happen. I just remember the whole experience of being an MSIA was, for me, it started out with being all inner, and then so when I met him in person the first time, it was really almost awkward for me. And this was in 2012 is when I first got introduced to the master's class. And when he came into the classes, we would just have the most amazing things go on in the classroom with him. I remember, for example, one time we were all sitting there and an earthquake happened, and half of the class started getting up to run out of the classroom, and he just sat up front, relaxed, calm, quiet. And then he said that something was being released from the earth. These were also the last years that JR actually was showing up at the master's classes. Thereafter, he had started kind of moving on from taking sharing, physically showing up in the classes. The next ones were in the DSS classes that he would show up for another year or two, and then he seemed to kind of just move out of showing up at those events. So a lot of my experiences with JR were really all this inner stuff, and I know that there's a lot of people coming into the movement, and my guess is obviously they're going to have a lot of inner experiences with the traveler, and I can just speak from my experience from there. It's just so rich from that place that seeing your traveler in the outer is really fantastic and wonderful, but it's really all about how it is inwardly with you and with your traveler, and they really do teach you everything, and the seminars come through, and it's just actually the most amazing thing to have, because you can, everywhere you go, you have that inside of you. The other things that I've been around JR is, this is the outer stuff is with him, with different events like at Super 2 and things. He's just known for like miracles taking place around him, and miracles take place in big ways, small ways. But I mean, this is the kind of guy where any like the psychic stuff you would actually see happen, like, you know, people falling on the floors and stuff like that. And it was always just very interesting to watch how amazing the room of energy would happen when he would show up in a place. What else can I talk about that would?
Is there one story you can remember that was amazing?
One story.
Dates and places are great.
My favorite things with John Roger were when we started traveling back on the road again. When I was first in MSIA, they had not been traveling at the time on the road like they had been for a while. They had been going to Japan and places. So several years later, they started going back on the road again. We did a trip to Jerusalem, which was just phenomenal. And one of my favorite things was when I first went to Jerusalem, because I was raised in the Catholic Church for the first 18 years of my life, was it broke all these crystallizations for me. For example, we would go to a place where they said, oh, here's where Jesus was. And then I talked to someone else, and they said, well, I think he was over on this hill over here. And it was like, there was no exactness to it. So it really was an interesting process going through Jerusalem. So all these things I thought were real weren't really what was happening in the Bible, the way that things were. So it really showed me what the reality of what was going on in Jesus' time versus what I had learned in school. So I was really kind of glad for that. And also, let's see, we went to Europe and traveled throughout all the different countries, and just every time we went places, it was just this, it's like magic. It's like a fairy tale land all the time. And I mean, there's lots of things that had happened that were shared later on that were like, oh, well, we went here and this demon was pulled out of the ground and this happened over here, and you know, there's all that fun psychic stuff. But at the end of the day, it really was also what was going on inside of myself, of what was happening everywhere I went. And I didn't spend a lot of time physically with JR, but the few times he would come up to me, he'd always say 1 or 2 words, and those words would last with me for the next year or 2 and would just evolve. Those things would become realities in my life. And even just 2 years ago, he had said something to me, and he was holding my hand, and that experience that he talked about to me, which was so briefly, started happening in my life recently, and it was blown away because I just realized that like 2 days ago. What he had told me a couple years ago was going to be happening in my life started happening. So I'm just stuff like that all the time. I mean, he knew exactly in 2 words what to say to me and how that would work through my consciousness and come about into my life somehow. And it was so more profound than if someone sat down and told me everything that was going to happen to me. He was able to just get to it that way. I love you, JR. You're amazing. I love our world together, and I can't thank you enough for everything you've ever done for me. I just feel like I owe my life to you. So thank you. I love you.